So next we shall check out about random sampling. So random sampling here it begins with a population. So let us imagine we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 people in our population. Next, how do we get these people in our sample? So what we do is a process known as random sampling. Random selection. Random selection is a root of the probability sampling. Essentially, it's like picking up names out of a bowl. You are in my study or not on my study. There is picking out of seeds from a ball, and it ensures that everybody in my population has an equal chance to be in my sample. Now, typically, it's not putting names in a bowl. Typically, you will put names in a computer or an Excel sheet and you just randomize them and it just randomly picks up people. So, I put these names in a computer and it randomly picks them, and my sample becomes my participant number 3, participant number 5, and participant number 6. Like totally random. Remember that random sampling is based on random selection. Now let us focus on our sample. The key to a good sample is that it should be a representative of the population. Now what does this means is it means that all the characteristic features of the population like different age, different gender or different incomes, different backgrounds of the population all are represented in the sample. So like for example, suppose 50% of my population are women, then what percentage of my sample should also be women? Yes, obviously 50%, and that makes it representable. So we essentially have two types of sample. We have got a representative sample. Okay, and it is very much important. Representative sample means the sample actually represent the population in a correct way. Okay, and the reason this is important is as we talked about the result, like population, essentially we are labeling it as a high external validity. External validity refers to the idea of being able to generalize your finding to the real world, to the general population. So if you have a good representative sample which is done through random selection, you will have a high external validity. But what if you don't have a good sample? What if your sample is not representative of the population? Like for example, same example will have like 50% of your population are women, but in your sample just 10% are women. So well, that's going to be a biased sample. Because of this, instead of having a high external validity, which is the key of a good study, this is going to result in a low external validity. Or in other words, we are not sure whether the validity is going to be able to generalize our result to the population, and this is going to be allowed to lead to errors. Now in random sampling, one question always comes in our mind. Does it matter how many people are there in our sample? Yes, it does matter. There are really two big questions to think about. First one, how big is our population? And secondly, how much variations are there in it? See, if you are studying a classroom, you might not need a big sample. But if you are studying an entire country, then yes, you need a little bigger sample size, and also it's due to the amount of variation in that population. Like India is a country where you will find people of different varieties. Like we have got people of different age groups, and different age group people have got different thought process, different ideology in everything, in every situation. Similarly, we have got people of different weight or different sizes, people of different religion, people of different income. Even income also matters in their way of thinking. So because of these differences, you will need a larger sample size. So how can we use a random sampling in our question, like what percentage of Indians support tobacco chewing? Well, you could technically get everybody a number, right? Okay, 1 million people a number, and you put them in a generator, some sort of Excel sheet computers, and then you press the button and it randomizes them. So you could do that, but it is pretty hard, isn't it? It's very much time consuming. But what's a little easier thing that we can do is we can use pin codes in India, okay? And in India, and by this way, I found that we have nearly 19,000 pin codes. So instead of 1 million, we got 19,000 pin codes. So next, what you do is you put them in a computer and press randomize, and it spits out. So let's say, for sample, we have selected 3000 pin codes, okay? So from these 3000 pin codes, you are able to gather information about the people who live within that pin code, and you have able to send out mail to them and call them or do some door to door survey, or you are able to contact them. And that way you are not doing everybody, but you are essentially going to different parts, okay? So now, as you can see, each of these green dots represent pin codes. So we are not going door to door in every single town in India. We are doing it so we can space it out. Everybody gets equal chance in India to be in our study, and it is easier. It is less time consuming. We will make phone calls, we will send out telegrams, we will mail, and all these kinds of things we can do, so that everybody has an equal chance to represent, so that it is nice way to do it. You can use pin codes, right? So next, some notes will have. Random sampling means selecting subjects so that all members of the population have an equal and independent chance of being selected. Next, we'll check out the selection process. First of all, identify and define the population. Next, determine the desired population. Next, list all the members of the population. Next is assign all members on the list a consecutive number, means give numbering. And lastly, select an arbitrary starting point from a table of random numbers and read the appropriate number of digits, or you can use a computer for randomization. Next, advantages of random sampling. It is easy to conduct, high probability of achieving a representative sample, meet assumptions of many statistical procedures. Disadvantages are identification of all members of the population can be difficult. Lastly, contacting all the members of the sample can be difficult. Fine. So this was all about random sampling. In the next video, we will be discussing about stratified sampling. It's all for today's video. Thank you for watching.